Hello, everyone, and welcome to Horror Night Oasis, a radio show where we discuss all the latest movies and news from the world of horror. Joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Ian. Ian, are you there?
I think so.
I'm right there with you. It's been one of those long days where everything's. Plus, the weather hasn't been too happy with all the constant rain and thunder. So it's just one thing after another, but we are here to continue on our Indie-Pendence horror marathon with another prime choice of low budget horror. And a little backstory before we get to the film is the film is directed by Terence Muncy. I'll just go ahead and say that. If you're listening, you already know it's Final Cut is the film, and it's directed by Terence Muncy. Now, over the years of collecting low budget stuff, indie films, I amassed a handful of his titles. And so one year he was set up at a booth at Scarefest, and I got him to autograph a bunch of things. And I always ask, like when I walked by his booth, like, hey, you know, you gonna do anything new? Any new projects coming up? And he says, I'm working on something. And every time the next year, I followed up like, hey, what's new on the new film? Like it's coming along. And so I did that for a while, and then around 2023, he started to work on this particular film, and or maybe it was a little bit earlier. I'm not exactly sure on the dates, but I know around 2023 he was working on this because I was wondering, like, hey, because of 2024, I was like, hey, you gonna have the movie available at your at your table so I can buy it? And he said, nope, probably not this year, but next year. And which, luckily enough, in 2025, he had it available. And so I picked it up and I saved it, especially for this marathon, because it is his first film since 2012. And so, it's one of those where he hasn't done anything in a while, and I figured might as well give it its own show. And so that's what we did, and we saved it, and we're here tonight for the Final Cut, as I mentioned. And so, Final Cut, we begin with we're following Jeannie. And Jeannie is a sort of a failing actress, falling star. She's, falling from grace basically from her career, where she's doing a bunch of signings, and she's not really happy with her work. And she's talking to her agent, and the agent is telling her, hey, we got this project from this producer. He wants you to come in. It's not a horror film. It's like a Western or something. And of course, you don't have to get naked. You don't have to do anything. And this kind of brightens Jeannie's hopes up. Like, okay, it's just not another film. And she has to go to this old theater slash haunted house. It's a duo, and watch this director's film while also being in the hopes of getting called for making the next project that he's going to be in. And so at the same time, there's another tiny subplot where we have again, it's not really spoilers. It's like the very beginning of the film where the owner of the theater slash haunt is talking at this bar, and two people are overhearing him talk about, yeah, it's just not the same anymore. I'm not getting as much money as I used to be, and it's just a failing place, and I wish it was back to normal. And the two guys, they're whispering in each other's ears, and then they proceed to follow the theater manager owner back to the theater, knock him out, and then use the theater for their own methods. And again, that's where everything intertwines, where we're also introduced to another handful of characters along the way. We're introduced to Ash, Brittany, Roxy, Larry, and then another guy which runs a podcast, and he's there to shoot B-roll and talk about the film. And so they all go to the theater, and they're introduced to Alex, which is the faux director, and his assistant, which again slowly reveals their plans as the film progresses. And as they're watching this film, the in the auditorium, gas goes off, and sleeping gas goes off, and they fall asleep, and they're soon locked into cages. Well, one is locked into a cage, while the other ones are behind the doors, and with numbers on them, 1 through 6. And from that point on, the he lets them go because they are filming everything that's happened, because they are making a movie, and it is a snuff movie. And the person that was playing Alex puts on a Minotaur mask, and he is transformed into Minos, the Minotaur, who goes around attacking and slashing the participants uh, in the film, uh, as they're getting picked off one by one, where they're chosen one by one, and then they get released and picked off soon thereafter. Now, that's about the gist of the movie. And overall, this has a particular audience, and it's one where if you like to see girls wearing lingerie or nothing at all, or topless, just walking around, conversation, talking to well, they're not talking to the camera, but they're talking out loud and emoting, um, wondering where the other person, their other friends are, and talking to, like, please don't do anything, I'll do this, I'll do that, trying to survive the killers, and talking to the director. And they are just walking around basically the same places over and over again, in lingerie, um, topless or completely nude, except for the guys. Of course, the guys, they're not naked. uh, so it's a lot of the film is a lot of a rinse and repeat from the beginning to the end, basically, because the beginning of the film, we have all the title cards of all the characters are arriving at the theater, and you have the title card, and then the music playing, the title card, and then we're introduced to another character, music playing, title card, and it's a bunch of rinse and repeat. They're driving, pulling up to the theater, and so on and so forth. And then they get into the theater, they're talking, they're sort of partying, conversations going around. Larry's trying to hook up with every one of the chicks at the event, and soon they go into the auditorium, and then once they get passed out from the gas, then we very slowly watch the director assistant come in, take their clothes off if it's a woman, and then pick them up and walk them to the back of the auditorium and put them in a cage. And if it's a guy, to do the same thing, pick them up, drag them off, put them in the back room. He comes back in, takes the girl's clothes off, takes them to the back room. And it's just with the director looking at the footage, the CCTV footage, and commenting along the way, like like dumb bitch, just like very mean things, like derogatory statements towards the women, or just in general. And then it's just a bunch of rinse and repeat with them waking up in the chambers and cages, and he's coming in, talking to them. Oh, you're next. And then he walks them down the hallway, opens the door, and lets them out. And then the Minotaur comes along and starts to kill him. And it's the same thing. And it's just a very, very monotonous rinse and repeat type film. And there's really not much to it. And again, I get the idea, and I know again, it's not like Bikini Monsters. One of his earlier films was sort of similar to this, where like it's women in bikinis, sometimes topless, and it was just like very just sort of, you kind of know what you're going in for. This one, like I kind of knew based off, having the gorgeous girls as actresses, and it's just going to be okay. It's going to be, alternative, sexy ladies in lingerie, nude, and just doing this and that in a sort of a snuff film slasher setting. But I did expect a little bit more from it, and not for something to be truthful with so many, naked ladies, to be as boring as it was, and just meandering and not that interesting. Like when you have a naked woman on there and you're kind of zoned out, it kind of defeats the purpose in my opinion. And again, some people are going to like that, and some people are going to be like, yeah, it's fine, it's whatever, it's a dumb slasher movie. And again, I just expected a little bit more from like the aspect of that, and like the whole reasoning behind everything. And it's just like, because the reasoning is kind of dumb if you really think about it. Um, but like I expected a little bit more. Like even the kills were kind of not the greatest. Slit throat, um, your eyes getting ripped out. Like pushed in by the thumbs. I just expected a little bit more from it being snuff, sort of a snuff film, like to be a little bit more in your face, sort of like Live Feed was, um, when that film came out. It's just like very just like mean, and just like it has also that bulky killer in a mask, attacking people for in front of a camera, as the title Live Feed. I just again wanted a little bit more from it. And another thing which I get to bring up is, when I first looked at this, the runtime was on the back of the DVD was 123 minutes. As I told Ian, like, oh crap, this is going to be a long one, so be ready. And I put it in the player, and it was 83 minutes. I was like, okay, good. It's not that bad. I told Ian, like, Ian, we're safe. It's 83 minutes. And apparently that was a forewarning to make the film. It's not, because it felt that way. It actually felt 2 hours and 3 minutes. And man, it was, again, I get what what he was going for, and it was very simple and very, you know, low, again, indie for, nature for the film. But man, it just dragged, and it wasn't that interesting. And it's just like the same thing with every single character. There's 6 characters. It's just nothing but rinse and repeat every single time. And that's the whole reason it lasted 83 minutes, is because every character did the exact same thing. And it just felt long in that regard. But Ian, I'll give you your thoughts, and then we'll go back and forth.
Yeah. So I don't mind random nudity or pointless nudity, for that fact. Like, as long as it's not the main focus of the film. And I felt like they lingered on too long, on the nudity, and making it a point to make it like the center focus of the film. And I just kept like, oh, she's nude, yep, and we're just, I was kind of expecting nudity. I wasn't expecting to like see full vag, and I was like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I will
But
make
yeah,
a point. This isn't like a Beelzebub where it's like full on zoom. I mean, it's more respectfully done. I mean, it's there as a means, but it's not like, again, a Beelzebub type project. So I just wanted to set the record straight on that for those wondering.
yeah. I mean, it was just like, I don't know. I mean, the girls were hot, and I was very appreciative of their bodies, but like at the same time, I'm just like, I felt myself focusing more on that than I was like everything else that was happening, because it just it was just kind of boring. And I just don't want to like flat out say something like that because I mean it's not horrible, but it wasn't enjoyable. Um, I like the look of the masks that the killers were wearing. I kind of like the premise. I felt like there was a lot that could have been done with this movie. Um, but I don't know. It was just something about it was just kind of dragged on. Uh, Cause this movie, I felt like it took itself way too seriously in a lot of aspects, while also trying to be slightly campy. And I felt like the tone was weird. It was like just a weird tone.
Yeah, I was when we were watching it. It kind of reminded me of one that we did way back for a Halloween marathon. Teddy told me to, where like again you have the killer in the haunted house, and then like, all the random characters, and like that one was like again sort of energetic and always kept this pace going. This one has just lingered and just kept like same conversation, same sayings. It's just like
Oh,
had the same beat for beat like with every single character, and it's just like it's basically you're not. I don't know how to describe it. It's just like you're seeing watching the same thing over and over. It's like I wouldn't say it's like insanity because each character is different, but it's just like they get dragged off. They're in the cage. The director says something. He comes in, says something else. He pulls one out, takes him down the hallway, puts him in the room. Here comes the
yeah,
Minotaur, and then the Minotaur chases him for like five, slowly around the haunted house for a couple minutes. The characters saying something like, "Oh, don't do this. Help me. How could you? I'll do anything." This, whatever conversations are emoting from their mouth or cowering in fear sometimes. I mean, they only changed it up once for Roxy with the purple hair. She tried to fight back, so they tried to mix it up a little, but still, she kept the same, mentality. Even though, like, they seen all the people that was still in the cages, and then they come to the hallway, and they start calling out for him, like, "Hey, you hear Brittany? You hear, you know, Roxy?" They're just calling out for him, and it's just like you just left the room. They're not there with you. But again, it's a small little minor thing. But it's just like again, so they go through the halls and then finally they get knocked out. Some die automatically. Some get chained up and proceed to get killed. Tortured or killed the next scene. And then it just again a rinse and repeat. Here comes the director character to the hallway. Hallway. Here comes the Minotaur. Murder scene, and it's just like constant with the six characters. And to the ultimate reveal of why everything's happening and like why these certain characters in general. And it's just like again, it's just like rinse and repeat. And it was just again, it got to the point where you're just kind of zoned out, even with all the nudity and stuff. And like again, it's appreciative. And as Ian said, they're not bad looking girls, but there needed to be more substance than just we're just gonna zoom in this,
yeah,
zoom up close to a titty. We
right.
need to have this, and it's just like it felt kind of unnecessary and cheap, in that regard. And like again, I appreciate a good, when it's done, tastefully. And again, it's not bad, it's not disrespectful at all for the girls. I mean, it just felt like there needed to be more substance there to go along with the nudity.
Yeah.
Like sort of like a rape revenge film. Sometimes, it's there for a purpose. And this one, it
Um.
just felt like, oh, we need to just strip him down for because like again the whole reason is like, oh, you didn't do nudity in a previous project, and like now we're gonna get it. It's just like that's kind of a cheap method to produce nudity for a
Yeah.
project, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And I think when I see nudity like that, I think of um, Slaughterhouse Slumber Party. I like thinking, like, I always go back to that because I felt like that movie had so much nudity in it, but that wasn't like honestly, after a certain point, you just lose focus on that after the shock value wore off of it. And it just becomes part of the film.
Yeah.
And I felt like, and that, and there was like a lot of substance behind it, and everything just felt kind of just natural. Even them being naked just was a part of the film. And this felt more like they were just trying to show off nudity, like, and it just never, I felt like it just never like fell into the background, because it was just felt like it was just being too much of a focus point on it. And I was like, I just wanted more from this film, like the setup and everything. I started getting a higher expectation, because I was like, oh, this the setup. We're getting an actress who, you know, is trying to break out from the horror scene, and I was like, of course it's going to be horror. Something is going to go wrong at this thing, and I don't know. I was just kind of expecting more from it, and like you said, it was just like a lot of just rinse and repeat, and I felt like that definitely did a disservice to the girls, um, because I felt like they could have, like,
At
I felt
least
like
give them
they could
some
have done so much
personality.
more.
Like, give
Yeah,
each one a personality. Like, Roxy was the only one that stood out, you know? Like, the other ones are just like, oh yeah, I'm bigger, I'm better, I'm more successful
yeah,
than you are. And of course, Jeannie, the lead, she was, again, there's a little bit of backstory there and character development where she's, as you said, wanting to get away from the horror and the new, and then find bigger and better projects. But like that's it, you at least get some divisiveness with the other characters, and make, what was the other two, Ash and Brittany. Like, what did Brittany do? She was just there. Like there was nothing there. And like I think the only thing they said was like, man, she offered to give me a blowjob, I should have took it. Now I regret that decision. Like that's the only character development that she has, is like she offered the director a blowjob. Like, okay. Like,
yeah,
there's just like it's just, as you said, it's just like, here's a naked chick, here's a naked chick, here's one topless, here's one fully nude. And it's just like, it just, again, it got to the point where it's just like you're numb to it. It's like, I wasn't even, I was paying attention, but I was just kind of zoned out a little bit, because it was just like, okay, now here we go with the same stuff again. And it's just like following down the hallway. Here comes Minos. Here comes there. She runs. She gets away. He comes around the other corner, bashes her head, tires her up, or cuts her throat. It's just like the same thing over and over. And it's just like, I appreciate, again, it's been a while since his last film, like I said, 2012. And I was kind of, again, his last one was Slice, and I liked Slice, which is very sort of similar to this, where it's like a group of girls in a house, and then like there's a killer stalking them around the house, and like it's a fun body count movie if you check out Slice. It's not bad. But this one, again, it's very in line to sort of what like Bikini Monsters was, but again, it's a little bit more. Bikini Monsters is more like a throwback to like 70s horror, 70s 80s, but like with a lot of nudity, and just one of those type of films where the scientist is making a like swamp creature women, or fish ladies, and it's not too bad. But this one is just like, at least that one was sort of like entertaining as it kept going, because it was kind of dumb in that regard. This one is just like monotonous and just like repetitive, and it's just like you kind of just like lost interest and zone out, and just like, man, that film, I wanted, as you said, you wanted more interesting kills than what we got. And then like the kills, they weren't practical. There was a few shots of like an intestine coming out, but like when he slices the one girl's stomach, it's CGI.
Yeah.
There's a scene later on where there's a syringe, and it's a CGI syringe going into the back, CGI decapitation. So it's a lot of CGI stuff, and then like a CG, the person gets their hand severed, and like you have like that CGI, but then you have like the practical stump, and it's like it kind of for what it is. I mean, yeah, it's fine, but I just expected a little bit more from it if they were gonna do this whole sort of revenge ploy, and just
Yeah.
to go about it to do it, sort of poorly in that regard. I mean, not the film. I just meant like the characters doing the killing. Just like you have all that build up and all that pent up aggression because she didn't get naked and everything else that happened with the other characters, and you're just gonna let them off with a slit throat and a cut open stomach. Like it's just like, couldn't you think outside the box a little?
Yeah. That's just that was just my issues with the film was that it just didn't have enough personality behind it. And like I think this film would have been the exact same no matter what the girls were wearing. Um I just wish they would have given us more for it. Like that was one of I think my big issue and was just the pacing, the how everything like it seemed like it was about to pick up, but it just kept that slow pace. And even some, like you said, like the deaths weren't that great. I'm not going to remember anything. I mean, I'm going to remember the Minotaur because I did like the way that looked. I loved it. And I was like, oh, that's cool looking. I was just really wanting the movie to pick up at that point, and I was just
Yeah, there needed to be some
down.
urgency to it. Like they're in peril, and it's just here comes the Minotaur, and like he's just lumbering around, going around corners, and like there needed to be something again. Like they try to switch up a few weapon, implements of
Yeah,
death. I mean, they have the blood, the hammer with the sort of the tenderizer at the end of it, and like they try to. I mean, I just like to see a little bit more weaponry in a sense. I like to see like a sledgehammer or something used because like seeing that him was just a knife and a hammer, like you needed to see this big bull with like a big, mallet or something,
yeah,
and it didn't. There was just nothing there. And like, oh, here he comes with a knife. Here he comes with this, and just like it
yeah,
just kind of there was just like nothing to really stand out to like, oh, that was cool. It's just
yeah,
very, it's just
yeah. Very, I 1000% agree. I just there's a lot, like I said earlier, there was a lot that could have been great about this film. I felt like this had so much potential that it just needed a little bit more of a tweak with what it was trying to be. And if these like I like a good revenge film where oh you wronged me, and like you did all this shit to me, so here's my payback for you.
yeah. It just needed to be more mean spirited in that regard, and it just felt like a a limp
Yeah.
where like they're
And
getting their come these girls are getting their come up back from these guys, and it's just like no point in like really felt like, oh, this is threatening. It just felt
yeah.
like two lumbering dudes. You know?
Yeah. And and even the girls like didn't really seem like they were just uh the purple haired one was just like walking around, and I was like I just was not getting any sense like of danger or um that I was just like, oh, is I'm like, is she not being chased by a killer right now?
Yeah.
Like I just
I mean, she had the balls of the group, but she didn't use them that much. Like she
Yeah.
was just like she wanted to fight back, but she like, oh, I'm gonna get you. Oh, it's a dummy, and then like, oh, too bad, too late.
Yeah. I would have loved to seen something like when, especially in revenge films, can't talk, um, when everybody they're trying to get revenge on gets a punishment or something that corresponds to um, the way they wronged the person doing all this.
Mm-hmm.
And I always loved that. I always loved being like, this is your just desserts kind of thing. That's part of the reason I kind of liked, like even like the old Saw movies where they would have specialized traps based on that. I was like, I kind of wish like something like that would have happened where we would have gotten that, and not just like each girl going through their own personal hell.
Yeah,
Instead
like
of just
we bring up Roxy a lot, because she has the purple hair and she has the tattoos. Like they could have done something where like they skinned her because like, oh, I'm gonna use that for like a rug or something. Just like a conversational piece. Like your art's too beautiful to ruin, so I'm gonna use it as a rug or just something to keep like interest and like going on to make it sort of just like that mean spirit, like we are asking. Just like each one has their own personal hell. She has the tattoos and becomes a rug, and then the other one is
yeah,
again they needed to do something to break it up a little bit.
yeah,
Like the
definitely.
Larry, he's like a misogynist and you know just wanting to hook up with women, and like that's the whole thing. Like, oh, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm sorry, I called you a douchebag, stuff like that. I didn't mean it. And like they could have, even though it's been done to death, rip the penis off, man. We need like it's simple instead of getting his eyes plugged in. Like remove the
Yeah.
penis if he's that bad of a person and that derogatory
Get
towards
him
women.
yeah. Honestly, I kind of wanted him to get like I had when he started doing all that shit, I was like, man, I would love to see a bunch of um like psychotic murderous women, like hot women, like murder this man with
Mm-hmm.
their bare hands. Like he wanted women, he gets women, like that kind of thing. Like things that's what I was sitting here thinking is like details for each person. Um, give them what they want.
Yeah.
And
And like I said, you could cut the penis off, put it in his mouth, and like now here's something to set on your face, and you shove the penis in his mouth because he says that. Why don't you sit on my face, or sit on my lap, and like, just make like little conversations that happened earlier have like a payoff.
yeah,
Like the podcaster, him with the camera, and like you could use the camera to kill him, but they didn't. Like it would have made more sense.
yeah. And like I don't know, man. It was just we're just now making at the point where we've ran out of things to talk about and just making up our own story.
Yeah,
But like,
that's usually the case.
yeah, but I think that it wasn't the worst film, obviously, but it was just kind of just I just didn't have fun with it. And this is the first movie we've really harped on in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel bad about it, like I'm like, I just wanted, because this guy, you could tell, like, he really wanted to put this in. This was like a semi passion project, and I don't mean semi, but it was, it's a passion project, and it's
Yeah, I mean
budgetary
it's up
constraints
bringing
and
back,
everything.
because it's been
Yeah,
so long since he made a film. So it's like he finally got back into the realm of things to get back into directing something. And again, like I appreciate the what he did and creating everything and making it happen. But it's like sometimes it was just a lacking endeavor in just like the finished product, where just like there could have been so much more that could have taken place within this film, but it just, again, it was just didn't really live up to expectations as one should, with like a girls running around half dressed or naked getting slashed in a snuff film setting, and it just lacked in that regard, and it just kind of fell flat. Like I said, it's for a particular type of audience, and it's just one of those that they don't care about story really, and they just want to see naked ladies, and like that, the film has it in spades. I mean, you pretty much see them topless or naked for the most part, and it's just like, if you don't really care about the story or anything like that, that Bill's the Bub category, or the other other directors that just use nudity as a means to tell stories. Like, again, it's done respectfully and tastefully. It's not, again, in poor taste. It just needed to have more substance to it than just like, oh, naked chicks.
Yeah, that's like the only vibe I was getting, like, at first, because I was just like, like I said, I don't really care for about nudity. If it's in the film, it's in a film. As long as it's, like, as long as they seem comfortable with it, and that it's not just like the sole focus.
Yeah.
And when it becomes the sole focus of that, then it just kind of derails everything else that's going on. And, and it's like, I don't know. I'm just kind of at a loss for words, because I was just like, this movie was boring. There's nothing really to like sink your teeth into, to like, there's not any real scenes that like stand completely out. It's just kind of there. I'm probably not gonna, I mean, I will have to say, I'm probably not going to remember half of this movie after tonight. It'll be, and that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, it'll be in the deep recesses of your mind until I bring it up in a future review for something. And like, oh yeah, that one.
Which happens a lot.
Yeah. But Ian, I think we're gonna call it there. There's really not much else. We'll soon become the film and repeat ourselves over and over, and we don't want to do that. So with that, we are putting an end to Final Cut. We appreciate everyone for taking the time to listen to our conversations and this film. Again, Ian, it's always great talking with you, and I hope you take care, buddy.
Same to you.
As we continue on this long journey of more indie horror, as we continue on the Indie-Pendence Horror Marathon here on Horror Night Oasis.
Good night.